Hello, welcome to Mod Midwives, a Metro Midwifery podcast. I'm Gina Gerboth.
And I'm Nedra Hale, and we are home birth midwives serving the Denver metro area.
I can barely say midwifery. Midwifery.
Midwifery.
It was really hard to say today because I am very sleep deprived.
Yes, it's been a really crazy week. All the June babies came in the space of 9 days.
I think it ended up being 10 days, but only by 20 minutes. You know, it was like, yeah, it was a ridiculous week-ish, longish week. So yeah, midwifery. So this podcast is inspired by one of our clients' daughters. We were at one of the births yesterday. We had a back-to-back yesterday, and at one of the births yesterday, the two little girls were at the birth. Oh, I meant to look up to see how old she was. I think she's 4, but I could be wrong. So cute. These girls were so adorable at the birth. I mean, they were emotional, and it's happy tears, and it was so sweet. The sweetest little girls. Well, at one point, the younger sister kind of is paying, they're paying attention to every little thing we're doing. And she kind of leans over and, you may not know this, but after you have a baby, you end up semi-reclined in the bed while we're sitting there watching your vagina for the placenta to come out, basically.
Yep.
I mean, not just like watching it usually we're watching for signs that it's ready to come out.
Yeah, so it's exposed and
yes,
we're waiting for stuff. Yes.
Yes. So we're sitting here on the bed chit-chatting while she's sitting kind of, knees up and legs apart, and we're waiting for signs of placental separation. And the younger sister goes, "Your vagina looks scary to me." And hence, we have named the podcast this week, "Your Vagina Looks Scary to Me."
Yes, it's perfect.
Yes. And what we're actually going to talk about is what you can expect in the postpartum period. Because I think that just like with breastfeeding, we spend all of pregnancy thinking about, how is this baby going to get out of my body? And not so much about what is life going to be like after the baby's out of my body.
Right.
So, yeah. So what would you want people to know about the postpartum period? Maybe that first initial transition into being postpartum.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. I like to, if it's a first baby, I like people to have a clear idea of how much support they're going to need. So it's, I don't know, I didn't feel like I had a clear idea about that at all when I had my first baby, and my mom left when my baby was 2 days old, and then everything hit the fan on day 3, and
yeah,
and up all night with a baby with jaundice, and didn't know if my baby was getting enough food, and so support is really key. And then I do like to warn people that day 3 can be a little rocky.
Yeah, day 3 is definitely, I think, the hardest day.
Yeah. Yeah. And your milk is coming in, and sometimes it makes you not feel good, but also like right before your milk comes in, you might think your baby's starving.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, day 3 is rough. Traditionally, we've done a postpartum visit on day 3 for this reason. We're a little bit, it's not super consistent right now with COVID, but we're checking in on day 3 for sure when we're together. Yeah. So when your milk comes in, there's a big hormonal shift that happens in order for your milk to come in. So I think it's very emotional, very hormonal, and like you said, physically, it's not always really comfortable. You can feel like almost warm, you can feel a little achy. And then of course, once your milk has been on the way in for a little bit, you can get engorged, your breast can get engorged. And that is so miserable.
It is so shocking. I definitely try to impart that knowledge to the first time mamas that that, that's going to be weird. And you're
Mhm.
going to mirror and not recognize yourself.
Mhm. Porn star has not been used infrequently by our clients.
Oh.
Yeah, everything is really big and really rock hard. And I remember looking down at my baby, and I am rather large breasted. And
Right.
I remember looking down at my baby, who was not quite 7 pounds when he was born, and his little head was so much smaller than my breast. It was scary. I
Right.
was like, this poor kid, how's he going to latch on to, a hot air
Oh, wow.
balloon? Yeah, I mean, terrible.
So
Yeah.
I had a different experience because I was probably like a large A cup or barely a B cup when I had my first baby, and I woke up to these ginormous breasts, which were probably just like C's at this point, right? But I was like so tired. I was looking in the mirror like, what am I seeing here? What's wrong with this picture? I don't understand what I'm looking at.
It's not how you normally looked. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So even before day 3, one thing that I wish I had known is that shifting around of organs in your body is really weird. It's a really weird feeling. Did you experience that?
Um, I'm not sure if I experienced that, but I do remember lots of my clients experiencing that. So,
Yeah.
so I talk about it because it can make people feel winded. But people even talk about actually feeling the organs moving around. So
Oh yeah.
not just like their lungs changing and like not getting enough air and all of that, but they're actually like moving.
Your intestines are going crazy. They're all over the place. Like I can feel it. It feels like a deflated waterbed to me. Like my whole belly feels like a deflated waterbed, and I can feel all the things moving around in there, and it's so disconcerting.
How funny. Oh my gosh, it's all so weird.
Yeah.
What about after pains? We have to talk about.
Oh gosh, yes. What about them?
Well, they hurt. So first babies not so bad usually, but it's like the more babies we have, the harder they are. And oh man, sometimes they're like worse than labor. I think at least
Mhm.
one of my babies, my after pains, I swear were worse than labor.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I try to warn people about that have the ibuprofen on board and be ready for these
Mhm.
monster pains.
And some people swear by herbal remedies for this, like Wish Garden makes the after ease tincture, cramp bark. There's a lot of different herbs, but I am here to tell you that if you have the monster after pains, they will not. I mean, I didn't feel like it touched it. I
No,
did not have any relief
I
from those things.
take a narcotic. I am not kidding. It
Oh,
was
for
just
sure.
like, oh man.
For sure. Sorry. I think when I started talking, I cut you out. You said you could have taken a narcotic.
Yes, I did
Yeah.
not, but I wanted to.
Yeah. I highly recommend, even people that think that they will never, ever, 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 ever want to take ibuprofen.
Mhm.
I highly recommend that you have it on
Yep.
hand. You can always return it if you don't want it.
Right. True.
They do tend to get worse with every baby. And I remember with my second, I didn't have any with my first. I don't recall any discomfort crampy wise. So they're just crampy. It's just crampy. It's your uterus cramping because it's involuting. The involution is the term for returning to
Mhm.
normal or shrinking back down. And when I had my second, I just remember I was lying on, we had a futon mattress set up by the birth tub, and I was lying on that, and I just got this glazed look over my eyes. I just was all of a sudden like overcome with pain. I got that kind of flushed, hot, painful. And one of the midwives is like, are you having after pains? Like it was just, I couldn't even talk. It was
Oh man.
so bad. Yeah.
Uh,
And all of that being said, it's not true for everyone. Not everybody has those.
right. Right. I've had, these births that had just happened. Um, I've spoken to two of our clients, I think, that didn't have any, and I don't know if you have, but it was like, well, lucky you. That's
One of
great.
the ones I just recently did, she didn't really complain of it. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, but speaking of the uterus involuting, one of the things that we need to do is we track that, or we pay attention to that
Mhm.
in the immediate postpartum stage. So one thing you can expect is that we'll rub your belly after the birth in periodic intervals. And when I say rub your belly, or even when I say the words uterine massage, that sounds kind of nice, right?
Right, a massage. It's so nice.
And yet, it is horrible and people hate it and they hate
Yeah,
us in that moment. It hurts so much sometimes.
it is. And so we're just trying to get the uterus to contract really nice and hard so that there isn't more bleeding than there needs to be, and to get any clots out that are in there, because that can cause extra bleeding too. So,
Yeah, we just want
right.
to keep you home and safe and not have to transfer for a hemorrhage. I've had about two people, like a couple people who said, "Oh, that feels so good." Like a couple people, yes, can you believe that?
Oh,
I know,
how
I know.
funny.
They just said it felt good. They liked I don't know, the help with it or something. But
Yeah, I understand that. Like sometimes even if something is uncomfortable, it still feels good because it feels like it's right or something. Maybe.
like stretching,
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
that's a good. Yes, I have some yoga right now that does that.
Yeah.
It hurts good, I guess.
Hurts so good. Sorry. Sorry, everybody. Sleep deprivation. Yeah, so that's something you can expect, is that we're going to be rubbing your belly up. The past couple I've had were so nice and firm and contracted,
Good.
and I didn't really need to do any of the massage because they stayed nice and contracted consistently
Excellent.
through. So yeah, it's really more like if your uterus is kind of like, oh, I'm just going to take a break, and then we massage it up and have it hold itself in place. The uterus is a fascinating organ. I'm gonna take us down a little side street here. The uterus has a variety of muscle fibers that go in different directions. And when you're in labor, your uterus is contracting like kind of top to bottom. So the top of the uterus is creating a contraction, and this top of the uterus starts to build. The muscle fibers kind of all start to gather towards the top of the uterus. And then at the bottom of the uterus, where your cervix is, it starts to open and thin. And think about what that looks like a turtleneck going over your head. This is the baby's head, and this is your cervix going over the baby's head. And the top of the uterus gets really strong. And those longitudinal muscles are the ones that are working to get your cervix open so the baby can come out. Then that big strong fundus after your cervix is open is what helps push the baby down and out. But then there's all these other muscle fibers in your uterus that go around and around. And I kind of think of it like as a rubber band ball, like muscle fibers going every direction. And then as soon as the baby's out, those muscle fibers engage and they act to clamp the uterus shut,
Hmm.
and or clamp it into a tight ball. So I think it's fascinating.
Thing.
It is. So anyway, let's see. You talked about day 3 being really hard. So your milk is coming in most cases. Usually milk comes in between day 3 and 5. It's pretty unusual to have 5 days without milk coming in a with a vaginal birth. That's a more common thing that happens after cesarean. There's a little delay of lactogenesis, is what we call that. Before day 3, your body makes colostrum, so you're still making milk.
Mhm.
And we'll do another podcast one of these days on, kind of the transition of the baby's belly size and all of that. But
Yeah, that'd be great.
anyway, yeah, in the first 3 days, the colostrum is plenty to fill up their tiny little bellies. And then you mentioned, kind of right before the milk comes in, their bellies are expanding a little bit, and they need to eat pretty frequently, and they do tend to act like they're starving to death on the night of night 2. The
Right.
second night is usually really rough. Did your kids do that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So they're just like voraciously eating, and then I tell people sometimes that colostrum's like a faith thing. I mean, you can express it, of course, and see it, but sometimes if you're not like looking for it, you can't see it. And so you're like, but I'm like, it's there. I promise, it's there. And but I definitely didn't know what I was doing with my first baby, and really thought she was starving, and yeah, it was just like a long night. That second night, so long, and just nurse, 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 and cry, 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 and
You,
but
not the
that
baby.
it's bringing the milk in, right? It's
Yep.
just
Yep. So before the onset of lactogenesis, so lactogenesis is or lactogenesis 2 actually is what we call the phase where your milk comes in. It's lactogenesis 1 when it's colostrum. But before the onset of lactogenesis 2, when the baby nurses, every time the baby nurses, it activates prolactin receptors. And the more prolactin receptors you've activated, the more milk making potential you have. So it makes total physiologic sense that baby would just nurse nonstop right before your milk comes in to activate all those prolactin receptors.
Right.
And it rarely means they're starving to death.
Right.
They're not really designed to take in large quantities on night 2. My baby did not do that because he slept 4 days, and that is really not good.
Oh, yes. Yes. You have the happy parents that report that their baby has been so good, quote unquote, and sleeping for these super long stretches so that they can rest.
No, bad
No.
news.
No.
So take comfort if you've got a baby that's demanding to be fed nonstop on night 2, that's a sign that they're eager and they're helping with the process. If the baby is not waking to feed, then it's concerning and you should call us. If we're your midwives, you should call someone else if we're not your midwives.
Right.
Don't call us at 2 a.m. if we are not your midwife. Anyway. Yeah. Let's see, what else about day 3? The hormone shift. It's very common to have baby blues. Did you have that? Did you experience that?
Oh yeah, I did everything with my first baby.
Yeah.
It was a disaster. But yes, baby blues for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the hormones and the lack of sleep, and I don't know. It just is harder than you think it's gonna be.
Sometimes I think it's a little mourning process too, like you're mourning not being pregnant, and you're mourning, if it's not your first baby, maybe you're mourning that your older child isn't an only child anymore, or you're mourning that you didn't, there's a lot of things. You're just, even if everything is absolutely perfect, there's just a little bit of sadness about transitions.
Yeah, that's a really good insight.
Yeah. So one of the things that I say over and over, and I apologize because I repeat myself a lot, and that's going to be really risky on a podcast because people are going to be hearing me. But one of the things that really strikes me in the first weeks postpartum is how wet everything is. Everything is so wet.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it cut out.
Oh, sorry. You
say?
have pads, and so you have the bleeding and the nursing pads everywhere.
Pads and wetness everywhere, all trying for fluid control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when your milk comes in, this is different for everybody. Not everybody leaks milk. Some people don't, but many people do a lot of leaking, especially when it's their first baby. And it's uncontrollable. Like it's just all over the place. So
yeah. I remember that. That was so weird to just learn about how it's like the breasts are like a sprayer. Like you picture it being like a bottle nipple, but it is not. It's like a hose sprayer.
Yeah. And when you nurse on one side, it encourages a letdown. It encourages the milk to come down on both sides. So unless you have twins, it's a disaster. And if you have twins, it's probably a disaster too.
Oh yeah, just in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, and the bleeding. So after birth, you can expect we call it lochia. It's kind of like a period, but it's more fluidy and more mucusy, I guess I would say. Your
There might
first, oh,
there
what's that?
might be some clots in there.
Yeah, you might have some clots, and it's pretty heavy in the first 24 hours. Like, yeah, we give people a depends, or there's depends, a number of depends. So it's that much bleeding where you need a lot of coverage.
Mhm.
And then it gradually decreases. When do you usually tell people? Will always ask, how long will I bleed? And then they'll say something funny like, will I be bleeding for a whole week?
Oh, I mean, I just do the usual, around about 6 weeks, but it'll vary for people, so it'll be heavy for a few days and then it'll just get gradually lighter and not as red, and that it just is different for everybody. So some people are done bleeding at 3 weeks. Some people are not done bleeding at 6 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
so it depends on the person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I apologize. Every time I talk, it cuts out your mic. I don't know why my mic is.
That's happening. That's weird. I'm having issues today with my technology. So I'm on my phone. Sorry, everybody. So it bounces around.
Actually, it's been very still. Good job.
Oh, I'm
You're,
just like stabbing at you right now.
you're going to build up your arm muscles.
Yes.
Yeah. So bleeding, you're bleeding. Another thing about the wetness thing is that you're so freaking sweaty. So
Yep.
sweaty. So night sweats especially are really common in the
And
early
then you
postpartum.
feel stinky too.
Yeah. And people want to take a lot of showers and put a lot of stuff on, but you know what? Your baby loves your stinkiness. So
It's true.
yeah. And then the other thing is that your perineum is your vagina can look scary.
Yeah. The scary vagina. Yeah. It's so I always tell people, just don't look down there for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Because
It's hard.
it'll look normal at 6 weeks. It'll be fine.
Yeah. And it's hard to believe it's going to go back to looking normal because it looks
Yes.
a little scary. Yeah. What do you recommend for peri care or peri comfort?
So, I mean, of course, it depends on what has happened. So, if we've had a super long pushing phase and there's lots of swelling, I definitely like ice packs on there on and off for the first 24 hours, and then it just reduces the swelling. But and then especially with those ones, I'm like, don't look down there, man. Just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be scary. Um, and if there's been some sutures, some ice might be nice too. But sometimes some like alternating some ice and warm packs, if it's not too swollen, it's nice too because it gets some
Mm-hmm.
circulation going.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to mention, people ask us, and I think I forget to tell them, is that the sutures will dissolve on their own. And so people are usually wondering what to do about the sutures.
I sometimes forget to say that too.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
yes, that's fine. They will just go away.
it takes a little while, especially with the sutures we use now. The ones that I was trained on dissolved faster, but there were more infections associated with that type of suture. And now we use a polymer kind of thing, and it does dissolve, but it takes a little longer, but it has less infection. So,
Mhm. So how long does
um,
it take? Like, is it closer to 7 weeks?
no, I know the chromic used to dissolve in like within 2 weeks usually. So the chromic dissolved really fast. The Vicryl dissolves closer to 6 weeks. I
Okay.
find that the mostly the Vicryl is dissolved by closer to a month, but the knots take a while. The thick
Mhm.
areas, and then you can have this little pokey knot in there.
Yes, and sometimes people call and they're like, "What is this thing here?"
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, you
Definitely.
have a story about sutures. Do you know which one I'm thinking of?
Or what if they know who they are?
Oh, that would be bad. Well, anyway, let's just say that you should not be inserting anything into your vagina until your sutures are completely and totally healed.
Yes.
Nobody should be inserting anything into your
Yeah.
vagina.
And we could also say you should wait until your bleeding is totally done and or 6 weeks before you have intercourse.
Yes. Yes. Oh, here's a good question for you. Somebody asked me about swimming postpartum, and I said I thought it probably was not a good idea for 6 weeks. What would you have said?
Yeah, same thing. So bleeding needs to be done for a week, I think, before you get, but 6 weeks, 6 weeks or bleeding done for a week, whichever one is later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the thing about the bleeding is you're not having a period. I used to think it was like, well, I didn't have a period for 9 months, so it's just 9 months worth of period coming out. No. What it is that your uterus has this big area where the placenta was attached that now has to heal. And although your uterus clamps it down, so the analogy of having a dinner size plate scar on your uterus is not exactly accurate because your uterus starts clamping down right away, as we talked about through
Mhm.
involution. It does have to heal. It's, it's,
Yeah.
what's the word I want to say? Like it's raw tissue that needs to heal. And you
Right.
don't want to do anything where you could have an infection, any kind of
Right.
microbe getting up into your vagina and your uterus.
It is a really easy pathway for infection because
Yeah.
that was a dinner plate size and it
Yeah.
is squished down. It's still there, it's
Yeah.
just like it into the tissues. Um, one of the things I learned to say early on that I don't say anymore so much was that my preceptors would tell people not to sit on public toilets in
Mm-hmm.
the part of like in the first few days, like maybe the first week, I can't remember, and I totally got away from that, but you shouldn't be going out where you have to sit on a public toilet anyway. So just stay home.
Right. Right. Stay home. Yeah. I mean, we try to set it up so that your first outing is usually about a week. So, and that's usually to the pediatrician, but it might be to our office.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how we try to, just so that you can have really a good resting time. I
Yeah.
think it's fairly appalling how quickly, if you've had a hospital birth or honestly even a birth center birth, that they have you coming in on day 2 usually, or day 3 maybe.
Yeah.
So that's rough. That's
It,
hard. And sometimes you can't escape it. Sometimes there's something going on with you or the baby and you have to, but for the most
yeah.
part, that's not ideal. So
We try to keep our people just like snuggled with their babies and learning to breastfeed. That's enough work. That is just totally enough work right
it's a
there.
lot of work for sure. I think it's really shocking how, when it is your first baby, how much time is devoted to nursing, changing, you're eating yourself, eating food for yourself and getting any amount of rest. I mean, that's it. That's all you have time for.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and snuggling is the best.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anything else? Oh, what about, I made a little list here
Okay.
since I'm so sleep deprived.
Good.
What about ideas to help you? You did mention ice. Is there anything else that you recommend for perineum comfort and support?
We do the peri bottle
Mhm.
for rinsing off. So it's like it's like an old fashioned portable bidet. You can buy those online now, but it's really a fancy peri bottle, you guys. Just FYI.
Yeah.
But yeah, so rinse off with the peri bottle when you use the toilet, especially when you move your bowels. And then you can just kind of pat off with the toilet paper. And then you don't have to do any abrasion.
No wiping,
Yeah.
just rinse and pat dry.
Mhm.
By the way, I joined that Kickstarter for the portable bidet. It was $100 and they're still not out. I think COVID just, everything came to a screeching halt because all
If
this
it's a
stuff.
be fancier than the one I got because
Yeah.
one I got was just it was just a peri bottle with a fancy nozzle on it.
No, that sounds like that Frida product. No,
The,
okay. No, this is what was it called? I can't remember. It's pressurized though. So it has a
oh,
spray to it, a little more oomph. Yeah. Yeah.
Or if it ever comes.
Seriously. I love my bidet. I am not going to make any apologies for it. So, all right. Well, apologies for the crazy technical difficulties today. We tried all the variations of headsets and computers and phones and tried to get our best sound quality. But I, for one, am looking forward to going back to the sound mixer and recording in person, because I've just about had it with Zoom. Zoom and I need to break up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also getting used to it, so it's getting more comfortable. But yeah, some of it is tiresome for sure. And I think with the podcast, although I love the video aspect of doing the podcast, but I think soon maybe we can go back to doing it the old-fashioned way.
Do you like the video aspect? No.
Oh no! Now hold on, because you just like froze up for me as I was saying that Zoom is okay. So repeat what you said.
I said, do you like the video aspect? I'm surprised by that.
I know, it's so not like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. It's kind of fun, but yeah, but it does require makeup application. So, and most of the time you see me in a bandana because I have been out doing yard work and didn't feel like doing my hair. So there is that.
Yeah, my hair is, I will take this off. My hair is completely unstyled, and
Yep.
I just let the headset hold it back, but I have wild hair day. I did not put much makeup on today. I don't feel like I'm obligated when I slept so little. So I have mascara and tinted lip balm, and that's it. Oh, I think
I muted myself because somebody was knocking.
Oh, I was like, oh no, now we totally lost you. Okay, well, anyway, we will stop torturing you all with our technical issues. Yes. Hopefully this gives you a better idea of kind of what to expect in the postpartum period. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, and it's something that gets glossed over. It is like your body is totally out of your control. But it's also really amazing. It's really amazing to appreciate what it did and to watch it start to develop a food source. Like, what is that about? Like, that's amazing.
Amazing.
So yeah, just appreciate it, but also be ready for it, because it's pretty weird. And that is why your vagina looks scary.
It does, but it'll be normal. Don't worry.
It will be normal. Kind of a new normal, but it will be normal.
Yeah, I mean, our bodies don't. I mean, we change through life.
Yes.
It's not just babies. Life changes your body. And of course, many different life events do that. And babies are just one of those things. So you shouldn't look, you're not the same.
Yeah, you're right. All right. Okay, everybody, have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.